This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. We, the members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, New Rho Omega Chapter of Hinesville, Georgia, welcome you to our college financial planning workshop. We are the hosts for this event this evening. We are excited to partner with Dr. Christie Murray, who is also a member of our illustrious sorority. It is our purpose tonight for you to be enlightened by the many opportunities that Dr. Murray will discuss related to the financial opportunities for your students' college success. So let us all listen and learn to what is a daunting process, we know, in both your child's future and yours, but hopefully your concerns will be answered tonight. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah Vicky, Sarah Lynn.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you. God, we come once again just honoring you and giving you all the glory on this evening, Lord. We thank you, God, for another opportunity to just come together in its illustrious sisterhood, Lord, and also, God, to be provided with knowledge and insight, God. We thank you for the resources that Dr. Murray is going to provide for us, God, and we ask right now that you'll provide clarity, God, and understanding, Lord, so that our youth who are on this line, well, God, will be impacted. They'll be positively impacted in their life, God, and that funds will come, God, and they'll have more access to where to find the funds, Lord. We thank you, God, even for Dr. Murray taking the time to be with us on today. And we ask, God, that even as she pours out, that you restore her, provide her with favor, God, in the name of Jesus. God, that she'll be able to gather more wealth and more understanding. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Good. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends all over, I am here to introduce the speaker of the hour. Y'all, we are in for a treat tonight. If you missed the last workshop, that's okay. I'm sure you will be delighted that you joined us tonight. Dr. Christie Murray is a national speaker. She's a published author. She's also a mother of two young men, one in college and one on the way to college who's a senior. She is a member of the illustrious Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and she is the anti-bacillus of her chapter, which is Phi Omega Chapter in Sanford. So she has her doctorates. She received her Bachelor's of Science degree in Engineering from Hampton University, a Master of Science degree in Computer Information Systems from the University of Phoenix, her Master's degree in Business Administration from Strayer University, and her Doctorate in Business Administration from the University of Phoenix. She has been a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority for 23 years, y'all. So we are delighted and excited to have her here to talk to us about college funding. Last week, on the 18th, we did college planning. We're doing college funding tonight, and it is an honor to have Dr. Christie Murray with us here tonight. So lend your ears and get your pens out and be ready. Dr. Murray, you have the floor.
Greetings and good evening, everyone. I want to thank New Rho Omega Chapter again for inviting me to come and have the opportunity to talk to your students and parents about college planning, which is near and dear to my heart, and equally important about making sure you have funding to cover those years of college. So with today's webinar, we certainly want to make sure that if you're not speaking, I would encourage you to mute your lines because we'll get background noise and it might be slightly disruptive. And please don't hesitate to ask questions either throughout the discussion tonight or at the end, whatever is your comfort level. We're happy to take questions from you. So tonight, I certainly want to talk about the college funding process and making sure that I provide you with information that will equip you and your parents with strategies to navigate through the college funding process and figure out ways to pay for college. I want to provide you with information about searching and applying for scholarships and share any other relevant COVID-19 implications or information that I may have with you. My intent is for this to be a collaborative and interactive discussion. So I want you to feel warm and welcome to ask questions, put your questions in the chat, and I'll try to answer them as I present tonight. Okay, let's see what this.
Dr. Murray, excuse me one moment. Could I ask everyone to turn their cameras on that can turn their cameras on? We would truly like to get some pictures, so please turn your cameras on. Thank you.
Awesome. It's great to see faces when we're having these kind of events. We've been fatigued by the pandemic and working and going to school from home so long that we take for granted being able to see each other face to face. So this is awesome. All right. So what am I going to talk about tonight? I want to make sure we talk about the college funding stages. I want to talk about how you can use your time wisely, making sure you understand the cost of attending college, how to pay for college, determining your financial need, applying for financial aid, and searching and applying for scholarships. As I think it was Sora Vicky, I can't remember if it was Sora Vicky or Sora Karen who did the introduction and shared about my bio, but I do want to share a little bit about my background. Back in 1993, I was a high school senior. I was the youngest of 3 daughters, and my older twin sisters, they were in college at the time. I knew I wanted to go to Hampton University. I knew I wanted to major in engineering, but what I didn't know is how I was going to pay for it. And my mother wanted me to try to go to a cheaper school, a public in-state school, which is really, it wasn't my desire. And so what I had to do was work with her to find a way to pay for it. I put together a system. Part of that system included me talking to people and sharing with them what my hopes and dreams were and what I planned to do in terms of my college aspirations. It also included me being prepared, me having essays pre-written, me having letters of recommendation that I could pull from, and other mechanisms. One day I'm sitting in the auditorium for an assembly in high school, and my school counselor pulls me out and say, "Hey, Christie, what if I told you that I just saw this company who was putting out a scholarship application, and they were looking for a student who wanted to go to Hampton University." I was like, "Okay," and who's majoring in engineering. I said, "Even better." Now, what are the odds that it was just that specific? Now, I attribute it to God working in my life, and that's where my blessing with my college pursuits really started. And so she said, "There's only one caveat. The application must be postmarked by tomorrow." Now, back in 93, we didn't have the internet. So I knew that I had a lot to do that night, and I had to try to get that package to the post office the next day and get it postmarked. I made it happen. Got the package submitted. A couple of interviews later, they called me to interview several times, and they ultimately selected me for that scholarship, which I'm very grateful for. And what I tell you is, what I don't usually share is, it wasn't the only scholarship I had applied for. I had applied for many. Many said yes, even more said no. So not only did I have this scholarship, which included a full scholarship for 4 years, summer internships every summer that I was in college, and a full-time job when I graduated from college. And I had all those aspects of my package before I ever graduated from high school. But I also had a handful of other scholarships, $500, $1,500, $2,000 scholarships that really made the difference. And so I share my story with you simply to say that I too have been in your situation where I had was thinking about my future, I had to figure out what my plan was, whether I was going to go to college or take a different path. And if college was my choice, I needed to think about what my financial situation was. So I want to share my experience with you. Here's my other experiences I want to share. I too have students in your age group. My son on the left, he's a sophomore in college. My son on the right, he's a high school senior. He has applied for, first of all, he has a Division I football scholarship and he's attending an HBCU in the fall. Second thing is he's still applying for other scholarships right now. So some of the things that I'm going to share with you, particularly as I talk about scholarships later, are not just from my own personal experience 20 some years ago, but it's also from my recent experiences working with my sons. Now, you'll hear me talk about two books as we move forward. The book that I wrote both of these books. The first one, College Planning Strategies, I wish someone had told me. I really try to focus on helping students get accepted into the colleges that they desire. And then the book on the right, which is the Black one, College Funding Strategies, I wish someone had told me. I wrote that book to specifically share my insights and my experiences with students about how to pay for college, how to make sure you understand what goes into that funding process. When I first wrote the Green Book, I would talk to a lot of families and students, and parents and students alike would say to me, Christie, my daughter got in, or Miss Christie, I got into college, but now I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. And so I realized that it's equally important to have the conversation about paying for school, not just getting into school. So as you hear me talk, you're going to hear me touch on some of these strategies. In my book, there are 10 strategies, some of which I'm going to go into more details than others, but I certainly am going to speak to some of these strategies in our discussion tonight. So first off, we're going to do a little bit of interactive exercise for a couple of reasons. One, I want to make sure we get a better sense of who's in the room in terms of students and parents. But also, I want you to think about what's your current funding situation? What's your situation now? So the first question I have in the chat, I'm going to put all the responses in the chat, but I certainly
minority owners.
I'm sorry, the background noise. Make sure you
let's have a quick look at markets and setting in direction. Really, the space looking at the dollar index, which was the high for what about 9 months ago. Change right now. We've got again 110.76 euros.
Hello, everyone. Can you please mute your phones? Please mute your phones.
Thank you. All right. Sorry about the interruption. I do want to have you put the first question in the chat. Please share with us what grade you're in. If you're a student or if you are the parent of a student, let us know what grade your student is in. Okay. I see Deanne is in the 10th grade. Ariel, Christopher, okay, he's a senior. We have a couple of seniors. Nikala is in the 11th grade. Great. Melanie, okay, has a 10th grader. Excellent. Excellent. Keep those coming in because it's helpful for me to know the audience that I'm speaking to. But I also want you to be thinking about if you're in the 10th grade or the 9th grade or even a senior, this conversation, you can think about it in context of how much time you may have to prepare and how you may need to think about getting funding. Also, I want you to just think about the next couple of questions in your own mind. What majors are you considering? If you're a senior, let me know in the chat if you've already narrowed down your schools and picked a major. Let me know your major and your college in the chat if you're a senior. For all others, I hope that you're strongly thinking about what you want to major in school and what colleges you may want to attend. Here's why. Different colleges cost different amounts. And so without giving consideration to your major, it's difficult to pick a school that has your major or your program. And once you pick schools that have your programs, then you'll need to look at how much they cost. And we'll talk a bit about that. Also, let me know the next question, number 4. Do you plan to live on campus or off campus? Very important question. Number 5, how much does it cost to attend college for 4 years? Do you know how much it costs? I hope you do. If you haven't started thinking about it, let this be the trigger, even if you're in the 9th or 10th grade, to start thinking about it more seriously. Number 6, let me know in the chat. Has anybody started saving money for college? Don't be shy. I mean, I know when I was a senior in high school, my parents didn't have a lot saved up for me. Nothing to be embarrassed about, but if you did, that's fantastic. If not, it's not the end of the world. There's still plenty of opportunities for you. Number 6, have you saved money? Oh, I already mentioned that one. Number 7, have you had conversations with your parents or guardians, or parents with your students or children, either way, about how you're going to pay for college? Who's talking about how they're going to pay for college? I hope that many of you are. Good. I'm seeing some good responses in the chat. Several of you are thinking about it. I hope you're having those conversations, because it's very important. If you're not, if you don't know the answer to some of these questions, I would strongly encourage you to think about your situation differently in that regard, because how you think about funding early on affects how you're able to find enough funding when you need it. So in my book, you'll hear me talk about various stages of college funding. Now, if you are in preschool, or if you're in K through 7th grade, for example, you'll see those listed here as having a lot of time to prepare. You have a lot of time to build your income, you have a lot of time to save for college, etc. But if you're in what I consider the late stage, it's not anything to be alarmed about, but it's really the more here and now stage, anywhere from the 8th grade to the 12th grade. This is a critical time where you may be looking to go to college anywhere from a year or less than a year if you're a senior, on out to 3 to 5 years from now. Then your opportunities to save may become a lot fewer, but your opportunities to start looking for grants and scholarships and other financial aids may be your reality. And so that's really where I want to spend my time, talking to you about those late stages and your opportunities. Now, I did see that we have sophomores, primarily juniors and seniors in the house. Well, this timeline can apply to juniors, and I have one for seniors. But if you are a sophomore, please don't be discouraged, because the earlier you can follow these tips as well, and the earlier you start with some of these items, the better position you'll be. But I do encourage students, when you think about funding, you should be thinking about timing. Things don't all happen your senior year. And if you are very smart, you will take care of as much offline and early as you can, so that you don't get overwhelmed your senior year. So if you're a junior, you should be narrowing down your majors. What do you want to study? You should be researching colleges. You should be putting together a college funding plan. What am I going to do? When do I need to do it? And how much is it going to cost me? You should build a scholar profile. Sophomores, juniors, even seniors, if you haven't, I would consider you doing it. If you don't know what it is, stay tuned. I'm going to share more about it. It's not too late to save, juniors and parents of juniors and seniors. College is not cheap. Even if you haven't started yet, I would encourage you to put aside some amount of money that you may be able to spare, because there's a lot of different costs. There's admission application fees, there's housing deposits, there's enrollment deposits, there's SAT, ACT test, there's senior picture, senior, so many different things, to where starting to save for college before your senior year could really be advantageous. Also, we're going to talk about estimating your expected family contribution and how much money you think you'll need. Make sure you understand the process to get your transcripts from your high school. Stay involved in activities. I know that it may be difficult during the pandemic to stay involved in activities, but if you have an opportunity to still participate in sports in a safe and socially distanced manner, and you're still following CDC and your local and state guidelines, I would encourage you to do so, and any other community service activities. If you have the opportunity to take the SAT and ACT test, I would encourage you to still do so, because even though a lot of colleges are going test optional and they don't require those test scores to get accepted right now during COVID, many of them are still looking at test scores to determine if they're going to award merit scholarship funding. So in terms of finding some money, it might be necessary to still take those tests. Start thinking about who's going to write letters of recommendations for you. Very important. Don't wait till your senior year to be like, what was that teacher name my freshman year? Make a list early. And definitely start looking for scholarships and researching financial aid. And if you're finding scholarships, save them. Even if you're not a senior, save the websites. You want to go back to them and revisit them in the years to come. Also, if you are a high school senior, you should have already applied to colleges by March 31st. But if you have not, don't be discouraged. I do encourage you to get your college applications in as soon as possible. Why? Because if you don't know which college you're going to attend, then that school can't award you financial aid. And most schools give out their money on a first come, first served basis. So generally, I would tell students in the fall of their senior year, and that way you can use the rest of your senior year to find funding. You should be getting your transcripts and having those ready for those scholarship applications. Same with letters of recommendations, making sure you're geared up and are writing scholarship essays if you are applying for scholarships, and hopefully you are. Making sure that you take the SAT or ACT test, but this is outdated since it's well beyond October. But if you haven't already, then it may be a bit late to take it as a senior. You probably still could if you're interested in getting merit scholarships, but I wouldn't think that would be required at this stage. Make sure that you complete the free application for federal student aid. You'll hear me refer to it as the FAFSA. There's a whole section I'm going to talk about that, but this is very critical if you ever want to get money from the federal government to go to school, whether it's financial aid, scholarships, etc., or grants. Also, apply for scholarships. Start tracking your results. So as you can see, whether you are a junior or a senior, there are a lot of things that you can be thinking about and getting ahead of for your college funding purposes. So next I want to transition into knowing the cost of college. The cost of attending college is really just how much college costs. It includes two types of costs: direct costs, which is usually your tuition and fees. How much do they charge you to go to classes, your room and board? If you're going to live on campus, how much does it cost to stay in the dorm and to eat meals on campus? And then there are your indirect costs. These are costs that you don't pay directly to the college or university, but you have these expenses, such as books. Sometimes you may buy books at the bookstore on campus or have course material fees, but you may have to buy other books. You may have to get supplies. You may have other personal expenses, cell phone, clothes, laundry, medical, etc. And then transportation. If you don't live near campus or you have to fly to get to your college and it's further away from home, you may have travel expenses that you have to include. So please keep in mind that there's a lot of different aspects to the cost of attending college. Don't be overwhelmed by it, but just be mindful of it as you're thinking about your plans. So now that you understand what different types of costs are, I want to make sure you understand that public versus private schools. Public schools are generally funded by federal government or state government entities for the most part, and they have a different tuition rate. If you're in state and you're attending a public school, it generally costs less than if you're attending a public school out of state. And then you have your private schools. They can be for-profit or nonprofit, but generally they don't have two tuition rates. They only have one. They don't get the predominant amount of their funding from federal or state government entities. They usually get it from other sources such as alumni, endowments. They may raise money, those sort of things, and just student tuition payments. Private schools are generally more costly. And as you can see in this chart, a public school, if you're in the state of Georgia and you attend a public school, for example, it's going to cost you a lot less than it would if you went to a private school, almost double, triple the cost. So please be thinking about the type of school that you choose because you want to think about how much it costs. The only thing I'll say that has been somewhat helpful during COVID is many students are doing virtual classes and virtual learning right now. So the costs have been a bit cheaper because they don't have the room and board. You don't have to pay for the dorm. and the on-campus meals if you're virtually at home, for example, taking your courses. But at the end of the day, here's what I want you to make sure you take away from this slide. Go where you can afford. Not every school is at the same price point, and you should really have discussions about with your family, whomever is going to help you to pay for college or try to provide you with as much support as they can. Please make sure you check in with them and put together a plan that works for all of you on picking a school. So this chart here, the other thing when I say go where you can afford, also when you get to college, a lot of students may slack off or change their major 2 or 3 times, or just not really be 100% dedicated and focused on their academics. So instead of graduating in 4 years, they may graduate in 5 or 6. But as you slack off, and like I tell my sons, get in and graduate, go to college and graduate. Don't take all day, because as you can see, each year the cost of that same 4-year degree goes up. So the longer it takes you to get in and get out of school, the more it's going to cost you in the long run. So now that you know that colleges have different price points and they can be expensive, they don't have to be expensive. The question I have is, what is your plan to pay for college? Do you have a plan? As you think about your plan, I want you to consider that there are different ways to pay for college. You can pay for them out of there's a lot of different household sources. This is where you, your parents, your guardians, and other family members may decide they want to chip in and help. You can pay cash out of your pocket. You could have a savings plan or a savings account where you've been saving for years. Some individuals may have a permanent life insurance policy where you can actually have a cash value out and use some of that funding for college. Or, and I don't recommend it, but some parents may choose to dip into their retirement plan. I don't encourage that simply because I think retirement is for retirement, not for college. But I do appreciate and respect that you have to do what you have to do. And as a last resort, you may have to go that route. So as you think about ways to pay for college, if you know that you may not want to or may not be able to pay for it out of your own pocket or out of your own household, there are other outside ways to pay for college. It could be the colleges themselves may give you money. You may be working. I know my nephew worked at McDonald's, believe it or not. And another friend of mine's son worked at Target. Both of those employers, after, I think my nephew, after he was at McDonald's 90 days or something, they actually gave him a scholarship or gave him funding to offset part of his cost of college. I think it was maybe $2,000, $2,500, but it adds up. So there's all kind of employer reimbursement opportunities. Organizations, both for-profit and not-for-profit, whether it's companies, corporations, sororities, fraternities, churches, many other entities may be giving out funding. And then there are individuals who may help also that maybe aren't related to you to help you with your college fees. You can look at financial aid. We'll talk more about it, scholarships, grants, and as I mentioned, employer education opportunities. So what does it mean when we talk about applying for financial aid? We always talk about financial aid, financial aid. So what does it mean? All financial aid means is money that you get to help pay for school. Simply put, especially if it's not coming out of your own pocket. It's money that may not come out of your own pocket initially to help pay for school. Now, the federal government awards over $120 billion a year to over 13 million students every year in terms of financial aid. They may give money for work study. You may get awarded financial aid for scholarships, grants, fellowships, and student loans. Those are some very common ways to financial aid. Hello, please keep your line. We're picking up background noise. Thank you. So please be mindful of the different types of financial aid. The one that I'm going to talk about next is student loans. And I want everybody to make sure they hear me on this. This is the way, student loans are necessary to cover the gap, but I certainly encourage students and families, if as much possible, you can fund your education without taking out student loans or minimize the amount of student loans you take out. I would strongly, strongly encourage it. According to the U.S. Department of Education, there are over $1.6 trillion in student loan debt. $1.6 trillion. 45 million people are current borrowers for student loans. 45 million Americans have student loan debt. I want that to sink in. And the average student has a student loan debt of about $32,731 as of 2020. So as you can see, the burden of student loan debt could be heavy if you approach college without doing any planning, without having a system, without being conscious of how much the schools you're choosing cost. And it may cost you in the long run through interest rates and quite some time to pay those student loan debts off. So this is a new chart I added to my slide deck. So what are the top 10 states where student loan debt is the highest? I'm assuming that many of you are in the state of Georgia, since this is New Rho Omega's webinar, and they're located in Georgia. But look at that. California is number 1. They have about $135 billion and 3.8 million borrowers. Georgia's 5th on that list, $62 billion in student loan debt, 1.6 million borrowers. So as much as possible, the goal here is to be mindful of your opportunities to make that reality look different for yourselves. Okay, Elaine says she's in Texas. Okay, Texas is number 2, so it's still depressing. I appreciate that in the chat. But as you can see, student loan debt is at an all-time high. Illinois, was Illinois on that list? Yep, they're number 8. So all these schools, you guys are representing areas on here that probably needed this message. So great. So what can you do to understand your financial aid profile and maybe even look for other ways to pay for it than just student loans? So we're going to talk about financial aid in general. I talked about the FAFSA already, the free application for federal student aid. And I want to talk to you about what it is and how it works. I'm going to go back to that flow chart in a minute. But applying for financial aid, the U.S. Department of Education requires that you fill out a FAFSA if you plan on getting any federal financial aid, and even some state aid. Most colleges are expecting you to have completed a FAFSA shortly after you've applied to that college. So seniors, please let me know in the chat if you've already sat down with your parents and filled out your FAFSA. This is very important. You can't do it before your senior year, generally speaking. It's free to do it, and each October 1st, they open up the application for students and parents. And I would encourage you, if you are a student and you have not done it, please do it ASAP. Still waiting in the chat to hear from any seniors who's filled it out. Great. Ariel says she has, is done. Good. And because when you fill it out, you have to specify which colleges you want your calculations to go to. All right, good. Sanaya says she has. Great. Great. So you have to make sure you get that done. And after your senior year of high school, please listen carefully, everyone. Every year you are in college, you have to refresh it and renew your FAFSA form. Do not make the assumption, oh, I did it once when I was a senior in high school, I never have to do that again. No, students and parents, you have to do it every year if you want money. If you don't want any money from the university or from the federal government, then don't do it. But if you want money and every year you got to pay that tuition, I would encourage you to make sure you fill it out in October. The reason why I stress it, when the application opens on October 1st, I think you should go out and fill it out ASAP, because colleges give out their money on a first come, first served basis. Good. I'm glad April is done. T says it's completed too. So when colleges give out their money, they're looking at who to award money to. When their financial aid money is gone, it's gone. So what can you do?
Hi, how are you? Yes.
You can get it done early. That'll help position you best. All right. Now, when you apply for the free application for federal student aid, here's the website to apply. Parents generally will need. Caller 5, can you mute your line? We're getting background noise. Thank you. You'll generally need your tax forms. You'll need your W-2, your bank statements, and other important financial documents to complete it. If you're a student and you worked and you're filling it out with your parents, you may also need tax forms if you file your taxes. Also, you can sign electronically. And when you do complete the FAFSA, you're going to get a report with your calculated expected family contribution number. This is the amount when they tell you this is how much they believe you and your family can pay out of pocket for you to go to school. The higher your EFC, probably the less financial aid you're going to get because they're thinking, oh, you have money, you don't need financial aid. The lower your EFC, the more likely you are to get financial aid. So that may be something to think about. Make sure your colleges get your FAFSA. As you can see, both parents and students, you have to complete, you have to enroll and get a financial student aid ID number. They'll ask you here if you're entering as a student or entering as a parent because both have to generally do that. So once you have completed your financial aid form, your FAFSA, I want to walk you through this process now to make more sense. So in the blue, you and your parents sit down, you fill out the FAFSA. You pick the colleges that you're interested in going to or already applied to, and make sure you designate those colleges to automatically get sent your EFC. The FAFSA, the student aid website, they're going to give you they're going to process it, and they're going to email you and possibly even show you on the screen your expected family contribution. You're also going to need, they're also going to send it to your colleges that you've applied to. And then what happens is once the colleges receive your expected family contribution number, no matter how low or how high it is, they're going to calculate and determine what financial aid that particular university is going to give you. It's going to be different for every college you apply for, so don't make the assumption that you're going to get the exact same financial aid from every school, because that may not be true. They're going to send you an award letter. They're going to send you a letter. My son just got one from the college he's going to, and it'll tell you how much money they're planning on giving you. So in that purple column, purple box, you'll see where it says student, you'll get it, and it'll tell you how much you're likely to receive in financial aid. And then you have to make an assessment in the orange box. Do I have enough money to cover the cost of attendance? If the answer is yes, fantastic. Congratulations to you. If the answer is no, then you're likely going to have to start looking for other means to close the gap, close that funding gap. All right, so if you have to close the funding gap, here's what I want to tell you. Closing that funding gap means, I'm going to skip ahead a few slides. It means, actually, no, I'm going to go back. Closing the funding gap means you have to find other ways to pay for school. What I recommend is that you do so in the term of scholarships. We're going to talk about scholarships in just a second. So I mentioned they're going to use your expected family contribution number you get from the government, the federal government. They're going to use that to determine how much money you can pay out of pocket. It's not your total cost out of pocket, but it's just kind of a rough idea of what they're factoring into their assessment. They're going to use seven different factors when you fill out your FAFSA to make sure that they're calculating it right. They're going to look at the parents' income. They're going to look at the number of students in the household. They're going to look at the number of students who are currently in college in that household. And if you're a student and you have income, they're going to look at your income as well. If the parent has any assets, if the scholar has assets, and they're usually going to base it off of the age of the oldest parent. So just know that these are the things that are going to get looked at in terms of how they calculate that EFC. All right. Now, if you want, I'm listing and providing you.
Everyone, please mute your phone, your devices. please. Thank you. And turn your cameras on.
Thank you. And so what I want to do is make sure that if you want to calculate or get an idea or an estimate of what your expected family contribution is, even before your senior year. So if you're a sophomore or a junior and you say, you know what, let me just put in some basic information and see what it says now, take a peek at it. I would encourage you to use one of these tools to do so. It doesn't have to be exact. So use whatever information you have available and estimate it out just to kind of get a gauge. That way you'll be able to say, hey, I want to go to this school. It's going to cost me this amount, but my EFC says I'm likely going to have to pay X out of pocket. So I need to start looking for money if I'm not prepared to pay that. So I want to show you how this works. If you're not big on formulas, don't worry. I'm going to give you 3 quick formulas to determine your financial need. Your need was unmet after you got awarded money. And then what's your out-of-pocket cost after they've given you financial aid and you still have money that you still have to come up with. So we're going to run through a quick example. Let's say you pick a school and it costs $56,000 a year to go. And you fill out your FAFSA and they say your expected family contribution is $2,000. So that means you still need $54,000 for school. They only expect you can pay $2,000. So they recognize that $54,000 have to come from somewhere. So then you go to Formula 2. And once you have the school amount, $56,000 to attend, they know your EFC is only $2,000. And then guess what? You luck up and the college you plan on going to says, hey, Christy, we're going to give you $51,510 in financial aid. So when you subtract how much your EFC is and how much you're getting from the college in financial aid, you only need $2,490 left. You don't have to come up, that's the amount you'll need to come up with. So then the last formula is that amount you have to come up with that wasn't given to you in financial aid, plus the amount of the EFC that they thought you could pay for out of your pocket to begin with. And in yellow, you'll see that in this scenario, you likely have to come up with $4,490 to attend that college or university for a year. This isn't all 4 years, it's just 1 year. So the question is, how are you going to come up with $4,000? Now I want to move to talk about scholarships. And what I'll tell you is, this is my favorite topic to talk about for a couple of reasons. One, what if I told you that there are more scholarships out there than they have students applying for? Hopefully that might motivate you to be one of the students who apply. 2, some scholarships aren't very well applied for. I don't know with New Rho Omega, but with my AKA chapter, for example, we have a very low rate of applicants. So if you have a low applicant pool, it increases those applicants' chances of getting selected. So one of the things I encourage students to do is look for scholarships that you don't think many people know about or would apply for, because it's going to increase your odds of getting those scholarships. But in order to do that, you need to have a plan. I don't encourage seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen, anybody to just, randomly start thinking about scholarships without having some dedicated focus and an approach that you're going to take. Put together a simple plan. Make sure that you focus on targeting different type of scholarships, large dollar amount, small dollar amount, and don't limit where you start looking for scholarships. As I mentioned, local scholarships are a great source because not a lot of people are applying for them. Also apply for national ones. And we've talked about organizations, many different type of organizations that are offering scholarships. If you have an opportunity, find a scholar mentor. I met a brilliant young lady a couple of years ago. Her name is Maya Mundale, and she received over $1 million. And I can't make this up. If you Google her name, you'll see it. You'll see she has YouTube videos, a Facebook page. She's on TikTok. Maya Mundale, and I'm going to put her name in the chat for you. But Maya received over $1 million in scholarships. And I had coffee with her one day because I was intrigued by her story. And I said, well, how did you do that, Maya? What did you do? Outstanding. She said, well, I applied for a lot of scholarships. I wrote the essays, and I had a scholarship mentor. That's different. She said, I reached out to some of these big, larger national scholarships who were offering great packages. And I went to their website and they had the past year's recipients, awardee recipients listed on their website. So I reached out to several of them. She reached out to the recipients who received those scholarships in the past. And she asked them, what did you do? What made your package stick out? What did you put in your essay? Well, how did you differentiate yourself from the competition? And that is how she was able to make such a substantial difference in her own packages. Fast forward, her results were outstanding because she too received some of those exact same scholarships because she followed their advice. So I would encourage you to take that tip to heart. Also, I would encourage you to don't run from the essays. Many students that I talk to, they grunt and they grumble when we hear conversations or when they find out applicants or scholarship entities require essays as a part of their application. Wow, that's a perfect opportunity for them to learn more about who you are. And with COVID being the situation right now, particularly seniors and maybe even juniors who'll be rising seniors in the fall, without having SAT test scores to lean on more heavily, many scholarship entities are putting more emphasis on your academics and or on your essays and letters of recommendation. So you need to write incredibly powerful and compelling essays when you have the opportunity. Make sure you read their instructions and make sure that you provide all the requested documentation as a part of your package. And also, don't just apply. Have a mechanism in place to track your scholarship results. Which scholarships did I apply for? When were the deadlines? And how does that translate and how would that look for you? It will look like this. Here's a simple spreadsheet that I create and I make available to students who get my book, and it's in the book and the workbook that I provide. This is a simple tracking mechanism. My son is using this. My high school is using this now to keep track of every scholarship. He probably has about 15 scholarships on the list and is growing. Matter of fact, when I get off of the webinar tonight, we have 3 scholarships that are due by today that will get out electronically tonight. So he's using this to track, and I would encourage you to create something similar. We'll certainly have a plan or a template that you can use to track yours as well. Now, one of the common challenges and questions that I hear from students is, well, I don't have a high GPA, so I can't apply for scholarships, right? Or I don't have a high SAT score. Wrong answer. If you have a high GPA and high test scores, congratulations, I'm proud of you. But there are many outstanding students who have different situations. So if you're a student who may not have the best grades, but you're talented in other ways, which I'm sure everyone is, then I would encourage you to apply for scholarships anyway. There are scholarships based on your financial need. So if you find that you need funding or your parents, don't make a lot of money, or you're an independent student, or you just benefit from additional work, I would encourage you to apply for needs-based scholarships. If you are interested in applying for a military or military service scholarship like the ROTC, I would encourage you to apply for ROTC scholarships. My cousin, he's more like a nephew to me because he's much younger than me, but he just graduated in 2019 from Hampton University with a full naval ROTC scholarship, over $40,000 times 4 years, $160,000 worth of scholarship opportunities. He graduated, I went to his graduation. The day before he graduated, he got commissioned as an officer into the US Navy. And the next day he graduated debt-free. They gave him a stipend. They gave him money to go to school in his pocket. He was getting a monthly check in his account to go to school, and he had health care and other benefits because he was in that ROTC program. So he's right now, he's in the Navy. He's stationed over in Japan, living life as a single young person, debt-free, worry-free, as an officer, a leader in the US Navy. So I only share that with you is because sometimes your road to success may look different, but never rule out an opportunity before it becomes an opportunity. If that's a means to pay for school debt free, I think he has to serve maybe 4 years in the Navy. I can do 4 years almost anywhere, not to have to pay $60,000 worth of tuition. And then he can decide if he wants to stay in the military or get out and do something else. So that's one example. Another example are students who have other interests. I have a friend of mine whose daughter is in the performing arts. So she's looking for a performing arts scholarship. My son is a STEM student. He's going to school for computer science. He's applying for computer science scholarships. Whatever your major, whatever your interest, whatever your profession, if you're left-handed or right-handed, there's scholarships for people. If you have a disability or if you don't, there's scholarships. There's affiliation scholarships. If you are the student of a person who worked in the coal mine industry or in the energy industry or in the healthcare industry, there's all kind of money out there. So I don't want you to think that you're limited just by your grades. And again, my son, he also got an athletic scholarship. He wants to play collegiate football, and he has a scholarship there too. So please leverage all your opportunities as much as possible through your scholarship endeavors. Now, here's the key. This is the $1 million question I get from students and parents all the time. Well, Christie, I don't know where to find those scholarships. Where can I find scholarships? Can you send me a list? I can, but any list that I send you will never be fully comprehensive. Why? Because I don't know your situation. I don't know your academic situation. I don't know if you're talented at basket weaving or you play the guitar. And so while I can send you some general scholarships, you're doing yourself a disservice if you only stop with the scholarships other people provide you. Google is your best friend when you think about where to find scholarship. Google, my son, go out and Google it. If you go out and Google scholarships for computer science majors, for business majors, for medical majors, or pre-med majors, or political science, whatever your major is or your career, future career aspirations, there are opportunities for you out there. Also, I don't know about your school counseling office, but my son's school counseling office is on point. Every week we get an email with a list of scholarships, local scholarships. Remember those local scholarships I told you about? They're gold mines because not many students are going to take the time to apply for them. So you definitely should, because while you apply and other students don't, you're going to increase your chances of getting awarded that money, and they add up. So leverage your school counseling offices. Also, there are a host of other online search engines, many of which I've listed here to help you. And I'll make sure these slides are available to you. You can download them. You'll get another email tonight saying thank you for joining. Pay attention to that email because it'll contain a link to where you can download these slides. So don't feel like you have to memorize all these websites. I'll make sure I provide those to you. But check out some of these. My son is using them. The young lady who I talked about, Maya Mundale, who received over $1 million in awards, she actually used some of these sites, and many other students. So please leverage those resources. And then in green at the bottom, my website, I do have some scholarships listed on my website, but I just don't want you all to get too comfortable thinking that you go to a one-stop shop and that's the only place you're going to look for scholarships. You're best suited to know your situation. And so as you start Googling things that apply directly to you, you're going to see opportunities open up. So that's like a college application. When you fill out a scholarship application, it has different parts of the package. And I want to talk about those just quickly. One, you got the scholarship application itself. They may ask you for financial documents if you are looking for a financial needs scholarship. They may ask you for your SAT and ACT test scores, but right now with COVID, many scholarship entities are not requiring that. They want to get a copy of your transcripts, official transcripts, maybe unofficial. They may want a copy of your college acceptance letter to verify that you actually got accepted into the school that you indicated. They may want essays. They may require letters of recommendation. They may ask you about your interest in a scholar profile, which I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. So I'm going to talk briefly about these parts of the application. First, the SAT and ACT test. If you haven't taken them and you're planning on taking them, I recommend you take both, the SAT and the ACT. And here's why. You don't know which one you're naturally going to test the best at until you take them both. It's not that expensive, maybe $50 for each test, but it'll give you the chances to see which one you're naturally the best test taker at. And you can use those scores anywhere that are looking for test scores. People always ask me, well, how do you know which test to take? And who offers and which areas usually take the test, which test? As you can see, the SAT up at the top is color-coded orange and the ACT is blue. And if you look at this map over to the right, the orange areas are the predominant geographical areas where the SAT is taken. And the blue areas is predominantly where students generally take the ACT. But here's what I'll tell you. Most entities will accept either. So there's no harm in you taking them both.
Excuse me, Dr. Murray. Could we please get everyone that's on the phones to mute their lines? We're still getting some feedback. If you have any devices on that's not muted, please mute them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, and so that's the SAT, the test score part. So if you are a rising senior and you're a junior, I would encourage you to take the SATs this spring. Many of the SAT and ACT test sites are doing it in a COVID-safe manner. Some may even allow you to proctor and take the exam online, but you'll have to go to their websites to find out their test dates and which approaches you can take. Also, I would encourage high school rising seniors in the fall to, if you take it and you don't like your scores, do some prep work over the summer and take it in the fall, around August, September timeframe. So next I want to talk a little bit about the transcripts, and I'm still getting background noise. Please mute your phones. Process, caller 5, please mute your line. Thank you. So some scholarship entities require transcripts, and I want to make sure that you pay attention to that and follow the directions. If they say they need official transcripts, please don't send them an unofficial electronic copy. Please don't open the envelope. They want them sealed with the school stamp on them, and they don't want them tampered with. But if their instructions say they'll accept an unofficial copy, then feel free to provide that. Make sure you know the process to getting them. My son's high school has 4 steps to their process, and I found out super early because we didn't have time to wait his senior year to find out, oh my God, it's going to take him a week to get his transcripts out because we didn't do all these other steps. Do those steps early, get with your school counselors, parents, and students, and make sure you've done everything you can do so that when you're ready to request those transcripts, they're getting out in less than a week. Order copies in advance. I actually have sealed copies of my son's transcript with me because what I found is some scholarship entities actually wanted everything in one package. They didn't want the school to send them separately. And so I actually have one of his transcripts here. As you can see, it has the school's information in the corner. And on the back, I hope you can see this. Let's see. I hope you can see it. They actually have a seal over where they close it up and they stamp it so that it shows that it hasn't been tampered with. So if I have a package, they say, no, don't send us anything separately. It all has to be in an envelope together. Make sure you have sealed ones available at your disposal too. And don't let your high school officials give you a hard time. This is your child. This is your transcript. You let them know that you're not going to play and you need copies for your own purposes. Because sometimes school counselors give you a hard time about getting sealed official transcripts sent straight to you. All right, so that's transcripts. Now I want to talk really quickly about essays and letters of recommendation. How many of you realize that you need 2 types of essays and 2 types of scholarship letters of recommendation? Wait a minute, it's not just for college admissions? No, because when you're dealing with a scholarship entity, they could care less that you're sharing that you want to get accepted into the school. The scholarship entities need a different type of letter and a different type of essay than you would use for a college admissions application. So when you're reaching out and you're getting recommenders to write you letters, have them use the same letter but tweak it slightly different and give you one copy for college admissions and one for scholarship. Why? Because scholarship entities are going to want to know what makes Christie a top candidate for us to give our scholarship money to. And so your recommenders and through your essay writing, you're going to have to demonstrate the value you're bringing and the contributions you're likely to make to receive their money. So we're going to talk a little bit about both of those. I'm going to give you some general essay tips, but please know that I could do a whole workshop just on essay writing alone, because I think this is going to be a key differentiator in students' ability to get scholarships or not. But if it's required, follow the directions. If they say type it, type it. If they say handwrite it, handwrite it. Draft your essays early. Don't wait till the last minute. Get somebody who you respect and who writes well to proofread it. There's tools out there like Grammarly. There's a Grammarly software that if you run your paper through it, it'll spit you back a report of everything you may need to modify. And don't just write an essay one time and discard the information. Save it on your computer and reuse it over and over again. My son has about 10 essays that we're still reusing. So those 3 that he's going to complete tonight, those scholarship applications, the good news is we won't have to write essays from scratch. We're going to reuse content he's already developed. And it won't take us very long. The rest of his package is already put together. And with letters of recommendation, please don't ask people you don't have good relationships to write you a letter, because you're going to get a surprise on the back end. If I had a teacher and I did not have I didn't perform well, I had an ugly attitude, I'm not likely the teacher you would want to write your letter. You want someone who thinks highly of you, who is aware of your accomplishments and your contributions, to really write a compelling letter. Ask them early. Don't wait till the deadline or close to the deadline. Try to give people at least a couple of weeks heads up to write you a letter of recommendation. I'm going to talk about the scholar profile in just a minute, but if you have an opportunity, provide your scholar profile to them. It's like a one-page resume, and they're going to have a lot more information about you to be able to write an effective letter. And then offer a pre-drafted letter of recommendation. Let me repeat that again. This probably went over everybody's head. When you're reaching out to recommenders, what if, this is a different, paradigm shift. What if as a student, you wrote your own letter of recommendation? That's kind of bold, don't you think? You pre-write your letter, and then when you go to Miss Christie and say, "Hi, Miss Christie, I know you were my English teacher in the 11th grade. I'm applying to colleges and for scholarships now, and I'd love it if you write a letter of recommendation for me. Here's a copy of my scholar profile, a one-page resume. This is my son. My scholar profile, and here is a pre-drafted letter that I've already written that I'm happy to email you. And you can take this pre-drafted letter and customize it to your desire on my behalf." I like it. That teacher can write the recommendation. Let me know in the chat if you think they would really appreciate that. I think that they would, but I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. The more you can help people to help you and streamline how much time it takes them to help you, the better off you'll be. I'm not seeing any responses in the chat. Nobody thinks it's likely. If you're okay, great.
And please still mute your lines, everybody. Caller 5, we still hear a lot of feedback. Please mute your line. We appreciate you all for coming on, but we all want to make sure we get all of the information. So please, everybody, mute your lines. Thank you.
Soror Karen, can you mute that line? I think you can.
I'm not the host.
Oh, okay. I thought you were.
I'm gonna see
Dr. Christie, can you mute that line?
I'm gonna do my best.
It's caller 5. They will still be able to hear, but you just mute the line.
Okay, I will try to work on that as I continue to talk. Let's see. So as I try to mute the line, some of the feedback I did receive in the chat was they probably would definitely appreciate being able to get a pre-drafted letter. And so think about that in terms of what you can do to have people to help you. Now, you guys are probably wondering, what is she talking about with this scholar profile? What is it? Now, I don't know if you've been on my previous webinars or not, but if you haven't, let me introduce you to it. It's a one-page resume, very, very important. And it tells the story of who you are. I tell students how you show up 3 ways matter: in person, on paper, and online. And so this is an on-paper depiction of who you are, and you have creative flexibility to tell that story for yourself. You can have a professional picture. As you can see, my son's, his has a picture of him on it. It has his, home address, personal information. It has his objective. His objective says to obtain a 4-year degree from an accredited university majoring in computer science and to play NCAA Division I football. That's his objective. It's very clear and concise, sentence or 2 or less. It has his educational summary, where he's in high school at, his GPA, his class rank, his SAT, ACT test scores, his honors and awards, employment history, extracurricular activities, and same with community service, and any relevant coursework. He wants to major in computer science. So he's highlighted on his classes that might be of interest to people who may be interested in him majoring in computer science, like his IT classes, his programming classes, those type of things. And then other interests and hobbies. What's the value of creating this? My sons created this when they were in middle school. And every summer and every Christmas break, they updated their scholar profile for 2 reasons. 1, I made them, particularly as punishment. And 2, because I didn't want them to try to wait till their senior year to try to recall all the outstanding things they had done over their whole high school matriculation. So don't wait till the last minute and try to remember what you did over a 4 or 5 year period of time. Create it early and save it and reuse it. You can attach it with a college application. If the college or scholarship application says that you can provide additional documents, I would strongly encourage you to do so. Or you can provide it with your letter of recommendation. And it's also helpful if you're writing your own essays. And instead of you trying to remember, what else did I do? It's right here in front of you in a clean synopsis. You'll notice it's all one page. There's nothing on the other side. It all fits on one page. So the challenge is for you to be concise when you create it. So if you give a recommender this scholar profile and have a pre-drafted letter, I guarantee you they're going to be happy to write a letter of recommendation for you. If you include that scholar profile in your application package, I guarantee you it's going to differentiate you from other students. They're going to say, we know everything we need to know about Christie in one place. Even though they have your application, this is a cleaner snapshot to me. And it shows that you put forth a lot of effort, more than maybe some students are willing to. So as you think about your funding situation, I'm getting closer to the end of my chat now. Think about it and have a little mental checklist for yourself. Make sure you've applied to those schools that you're interested in going to, seniors and rising juniors who are rising seniors. You're going to be applying to schools. You'll need to complete the FAFSA if you haven't already. Make sure you review those award letters when they come in. And do know that you can appeal a school's award letter. If you get an award letter back and you don't necessarily agree with the recommended award amount, you can appeal it. There's a process. Don't let a school tell you you can't. You can find out their appeal process and absolutely appeal it. Also, you can make sure that on your checklist, you think about your funding needs. And if you need extra money, apply for scholarships. Don't wait till your senior year. Some scholarship entities will actually award scholarships to high school students, and you don't always have to be a senior. So as you're looking, look for those types too. It's very important that you select which college you're going to attend, because now you'll be able to tell your parents, I'm going to pick X school, and now we know that particular school costs $20,000 a year. All right, so let's get our plan around that particular school. You'll need to narrow in on your funding plan for that school. Also, be prepared to pay your enrollment and housing deposits and fees. Particularly seniors right now, you should be getting acceptance letters in that says, hey, if you actually accept coming to our university and you plan to enroll, Please let us know by X date and pay these fees by X date. That'll hold your spot at that university. And then make sure after you reviewed all your financial aid award letters, you accept your financial aid. They will give you instructions on your award letter to log into their portal and accept. You can accept award items in part or in full. On an award letter, they may give you student loans, they may give you grant funding. You may decide, I'm going to accept the grants, but I'm going to reject the student loans because I got other sources of money. You don't have to accept it in its entirety. You can accept an award letter in parts if you need to. So please be mindful of some of those things when you're putting together your funding plan. And then lastly, I want every student who has to find funding to apply for scholarships. Start early, get organized. I would encourage you, like my son, we have a goal of you need to apply for X number of scholarships every week. How many have you looked for? How many have you researched? How many have you applied to? That way you don't have to do everything at one time and overwhelm yourself. I would encourage you to find a scholarship mentor, pay attention to the deadlines, and certainly make sure that you track your progress with scholarships throughout this entire process. Nothing worse than you've applied for 50 scholarships and it's like, wait a minute, when did I apply for that? What else did I apply for? How much was it? Having that simple spreadsheet with all those details on it will help you to manage your own insanity your senior year when things get busy. And lastly, you're going to enter a lot of websites, create a lot of accounts, and a lot of portals. I would encourage you and your parents to save all of your usernames and passwords in the central place to where both of you can access them. I'm running into the same with my son. It's too many. I mean, over 50 different username and passwords, depending on what you're doing. And so we're not going to memorize them in our head. So have a mechanism that works for you to where you can quickly get to them. And then I also would encourage you parents to work with your students to create a joint email account. My son and I have one that he uses because he never checks his email. So we created one and we handle all his college business through that same email account that he and I both have access to make sure nothing gets missed and nothing gets lost. Most scholarship entities are communicating electronically through your email. So students, I would encourage you to check your email daily, and parents as well, and be responsive. Please don't have people waiting on you for documentation and other actions that you need to take. 24-hour or less turnaround. If it's the same day, even better. So with that being said, I am really done sharing in terms of my key strategies for you. The resources that I spoke to, you can find them on my website. There's templates on my website. Some of those templates I've been introducing in the discussion, www.investinothers.com. So feel free to visit there. Also in the slide deck, you'll find useful links to some of the things that I've shared with you tonight. Also, there's some great YouTube videos. In particular, I would encourage students to watch the one on essay writing and letters of recommendation, particularly as you gear up to write those letters, write those essays and get those letters. Very, very effective tips for how to write powerful essays if you're struggling with that, and many other topics. Follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook. I know most of you young people may not be, but I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, and recently TikTok. So I do put out tips. I share scholarships and other useful information to students on all of those platforms. And please, 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 we would encourage you to complete our survey. Share your thoughts on how we can, maybe how effective this webinar session has been for you. Hopefully you've taken away a few things that you can learn and build on that'll help to prove successful. But also give us feedback if there are other topics you'd like us to consider in the future or improvements to make. I'm going to put the link to the Survey Monkey in the chat. I just did. Also, I'm getting a question about my website. I'm putting that in the chat too. But please give us some survey feedback. It takes 5 minutes or less, probably about 2 minutes if I'm honest. It won't take long. You can do it from your phone, and we'd be happy to get your thoughts. So with that being said, we're opening up for questions. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see some live faces, hopefully. This is good. Back to live faces. I see a lot of students, but I don't see a lot of faces. So happy to see your faces.
Okay, we're asking everyone to put their cameras on so we can get pictures, please.
All right. Are there any questions? You can ask questions two ways. We want you to feel comfortable asking. There is no wrong question. You can either ask in the chat function and we'll monitor that, or you can come off mute and we're happy to take your questions that way as well. All right, so in the chat, I saw a great comment. Someone says, I'm listening for a freshman, never heard of the scholar profile. It's new. It's new to you, but I used it years ago with my niece. She was applying for scholarship and I kept trying to work with her, and it just got too convoluted. I kept asking, so what did you do and which activities were you in? And finally I said, we can't keep operating like that. I need one complete snapshot so that anybody who picks it up can really get an idea of who you are and what your accomplishments were while you were in school. This is an opportunity to sell yourself, to highlight all of your contributions and accomplishments. Don't sell yourself short. This is your opportunity to brag on you. Please maximize it. So I hope that helps. The template doesn't usually get shared with the PowerPoint. I can, I'm gonna try to upload it to my website. So if you go to here, I'm gonna put in the chat my website where you're gonna go and get the webinar materials. And I don't normally include it there, but I will because you asked that question. I will make sure I include the scholar profile at the webinar materials link that I just shared. How do you get the EFC? Because I never received it. Sanaya, are you here still? Hopefully you are. Your EFC should come from the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA website, in an email. You likely received an email that says your FAFSA was processed, and you will likely get a report that shows what your EFC is. If not, if you log back into the FAFSA website, I guarantee you it's in there. So I would encourage you to log back in to your profile, and it may be under documents, because they will send you a confirmation, and your confirmation should include your EFC. Any other questions? Everybody understand what they need to do to look for money? Everybody knows, get their money approach down. We're gonna try to aim for more free money with scholarships, less student loan debt, starting early, looking for that money. All right, good. All right, any other questions? How can we find a mentor for scholarships? Okay, good question, Elaine. Go to the websites where let's say there's scholarships you're interested in applying. Let's say the Ron Brown Scholarship, or Bill and Melinda Gates, or Amazon has scholarships, all these different companies. So depending on where you're trying to get a scholarship award from, I would look at that particular entity's website, because they always have these banners. Congratulations to the 2020 scholarship. They usually have a picture and their name. If they have their names, you might have to Google them on Twitter or some other means to reach out to them if they didn't include their email addresses, and try to find that student who got awarded the scholarship and send them a note and say, hey, you don't know me. However, congratulations. You know, I'm very impressed about you getting the scholarship from this company or this organization. And I'm interested in talking with you to learn more about how you did it, what your process was. Most students would be honored to have other students reach out. Most students don't reach out, believe it or not. So that's a unique opportunity to be proactive. Right? All right. Well, thank you all very much for your time tonight. I'm going to turn it back over to New Rho Omega for any wrap up and closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Murray. I am going to turn it over to our Basilisk, Sharon Jackson Wynn. So, Madam Basilisk, you have the floor.
Thank you, Sarah Karen. Thank you, Dr. Christie Murray. Once again, you have given me more information than I ever thought I could even remember. And well, some of it wasn't there when I was going to college. I love the part about the scholarship mentor, just to highlight on a few things, planning, organizing, completing your information early. For the students out there and for the parents, we've been given a wealth of information here. So I just pray that you continue to use it. And if you're having some issues with it, don't feel like you're by yourself or you feel alone. Contact one of the members of the sorority and we can get in touch with Dr. Christie and maybe we can get some more information for you to assist you in your next journey. I want to thank the students for participating. I want to thank the parents. I want to thank all those visitors on the line. I hope there was something said that's going to benefit you in your preparation for funding your education on the college level. Like I said, I know I've written all these notes, but I'm not going to repeat all of it. But I enjoyed it immensely. And I just want to thank Dr. Christie once again. For those of you who are a part of the CAPS program and are anticipating to be a part of the CAPS program, make sure you get your application out to Ms. Karen Horton or Mr. Wendell Wilson. I had a couple of things I wanted to highlight on. We will have more of these webinars to come with the CAP students. So if you are not participating in the CAP program, we would love to have you. So if you need an application, you can see either any member of our organization, but Ms. Karen Horton and Mr. Wendell Wilson are the chair and co-chair for the program. But if you know someone in the sorority, please just reach out to us and we'll get that application to you, because we would love to see you within the next year working towards your goals. I like that employer reimbursement. I just had to say this. Employer reimbursement fundings. We have a lot of students that work at the high school level, and I don't even know if they even ask their employees about, if I decide to go to college, do you have any scholarship money for me? I thought that was excellent. And I know McDonald's works with students on preparing them for the next phase of their life. So I'm gonna stop talking. Okay, Sir Karen, it's on you. I enjoyed it immensely, and I'm speaking for my chapter. We love it.
Thank you so much, Madam Basilisk. I was putting my email into the chat. So Sarah Dwanda, if you could put yours in the chat as well for anyone that would like to get an application that you're not sure who to see right now, that email is in there. I am so appreciative, Dr. Christie. You just don't know how much. We know you are a very busy woman, and we truly appreciate you for coming in and giving us this workshop. And we are looking forward to more collaboration with you and your organization. So thank you so much.
Anytime.
Sarah DeWinda, anybody else from the committee have anything? All right, with that being said, we appreciate y'all. Y'all have a wonderful evening and enjoy your Easter week and stay safe.
Wait a minute, don't forget to do the survey.
That's right. Please make sure you complete the survey. I've already completed mine. It took me less than 2 minutes.